How's it going, people? I got a new Tiki Bar that I got started today, and you could see some of the band boards up there, and I wanted to explain a little bit of this. So here we are. There's all my band boards, and I had to change a few things today. A few things are out of the ordinary for me. One of the things is the pilings are round instead of 6x6s or 8x8s or 12x12s. This one is like 11 inches or 10 inches, and this one is 14 inches. That's another thing. You need some consistency. You can't just slap the top band next to on the inside and slap the bottom band on the outside of everything, because if you come over to this side, your roof's going to be like a trapezoid. So what I did here, let me get my tape. This band is on the outside. The inside of this band planes with this. And one of the reasons I did it this way is I wanted something to anchor very strongly into the piling. So I ran the two sides. I'm calling this the right side, and over here the left side. I ran them from piling to piling. But because the other piling behind me is 14 inches, I had to add 2.5 inches. And the reason I had to add that, I could have just slapped it on here, but then this roof is going to be a little bit smaller. When I got a roof on 4 sides this time, I need all the rafters on all sides to be identical, or else it's going to look strange. So the thing that I'm making strange is the way I'm building this out. There's some more people heading to the beach. Good for them. So I'm lining this up as if it were a larger piling. I had to do a lot of layouts. I laid these boards down on the ground and I squared them up. And as you can see, squaring it up, there's a little gap over here, like 1.25 inches. And there's about 1.5 inch gap over there, or there was before I bumped it. But part of the deal also is these pilings. I know this one over here was like 1.75 inches out of plumb. So even though I got a gap at the bottom, it tells me I should have packed this out 1.5 inches or roughly 1.25 inches maybe. But it's so out of plumb that way that this is actually in line very well. So anyway, I got a bunch of weird configuration, but my rafters, and then there's another point. I got one final point. And because of that build out, let me see my pattern. Here's my pattern. Because of this build out here, normally, if the rafter's up there, then I would want to chop off that top section, but I don't want to do that. It wouldn't have anything bearing. And even though those are packed out 2.5 inches, I've got 6-inch lag bolts going through this block into the piling. I have 2 lag bolts, and so that's secure. The band is up against there, that's secure, and then this band is up against that band, so it's not going to fall this way at all. It's an unusual situation, but it's all going to hold itself up. And anyway, so I had to going back to my roof is a little different. I had to come up with a way to make it work. And because the 14-inch pilings would only leave me with, I was looking at it earlier, it would only leave me with like a nub of a tail, and I don't think that looks very good either. So I made the tail a little bit longer, but the top of the rafter is the same as it always is. So I'm still going to have 5 boards across the top, but I'm going to put one more board. I allowed enough to put one more board on the top of here, and I'm going to end up putting a little triangle underneath to add a little support to these, although they're not going anywhere. They're going to be, they got their bird mouths on the bottom band. They'll be nailed into the top, screwed actually, nailed and screwed. They'll be tacked with the nail gun and followed up with a screw. So anyway, that's my unusual configuration. The bottom of that tail, and I was saying I had a little bit of a tail. I like that amount of tail. I'm not against that. It looks better than if it was just a nub like that. The bottom of that tail looks like 79 inches off the ground. So no, even though there's going to be a countertop across here, no one's going to hit their head on that. Even if you try to, you're not going to hit your head on it. But that's what I got going. So now, since I got a good rafter that I like, I used it as a pattern, and I need to cut 30 rafters total, including that pattern, which is going to be used as one. It's going to have an unusual top on it. It's going to have a small bird mouth and then the rounded tail that I like to do. And then I use my belt sander to clean up that rounded tail. So now I'm going to start cutting rafters. It's been a long day just getting all that up, and by myself, but I never complain about working by myself. I can usually figure it out. It's a little harder to figure out to just, sometimes I clamp dead wood here and there that I could rest beams on, but this time I ended up taking little blocks with screws in them, and I have these blocks here with screws in them, and I could put them up wherever I need to, put it about a ½ inch below where it needs to be, and screw it into the piling. And then I could rest that band on top of my block and then go over there and fasten that side and then come back over here and raise it to position and get it in. You can see a few of my screw holes, but that ain't so bad. And each of them has 3 screws, stainless steel 3-inch screws into the piling, 3 more into the next band, 3 into the piling. It's all going to tie together. It's not going to fall. It's not going to move. It's not going to shift. It's all going to look good. It just took a while to figure this out. It's an unusual situation. And I knew it was going to be a challenge, and I was looking forward to this challenge. But I got through a lot of it, and now I'm going to hopefully start making some good time. All right, cutting rafters. And FYI, here's the rest of my material. A lot of 2x8s for counter surface, a lot of 2x4s for support of that counter, and also support of there's going to be built-in benches around. The deck boards are all mostly, actually, the main reason they're here is for the roof, the roof sheathing. And then 2x12s are going to be the benches, this actual seat, which I need to figure out. And then instead of doing louvered walls on the lower portion of the bar, because I have an idea to make these benches that are going to support from either side. But I'm going to use a bunch of regular 1x6, regular treated 1x6. And I bought up a lot of the material, and if I have too much, I'll take it home because I could always use that on furniture. Anyway, that's where we're at. Thanks. So I've got all the tails marked from my pattern, and I used my cordless DeWalt jigsaw, cut everything out, try to watch the staples on the end of the board. I might not have known that that tag was still there. I hate those tags. I hate everything about those tags. Anyway, I used the jigsaw to cut the bird's mouths because it's such a short cut. It's only 1.5 inches and across the beam, the horizontal cut, and then the vertical cut's even less. It's like 1 inch. And then I will use the circular saw to cut the top cuts, and but go through the process of marking everything out, and then and I believe I needed 30 rafters altogether, so gotta just cut them all out. And then another thing I do, I don't have a proper workbench here, but I put some heavier material on the horses, and then I clamp the rafter in its longest condition before I cut them down to shorter lengths. I clamp it down just to give it a lot of support, and I use the bandsaw here. The bandsaw. I use the belt sander here to clean up that rounded edge, and I believe this is a 27 grit belt, and that Makita belt sander is a beast. It does a wonderful job, and that 27 grit or 23, one of those, I forget which one it is. It's an amazing rough grit, but this treated pine can be really wet, and without such a coarse paper, it's really hard to knock everything down, and the jigsaw leaves a bevel a lot of times if I let it get out of hand, and that happens sometimes. But the belt sander just mows right through it and cleans it all up very well. That's always a plus. So as I get the tails cleaned up, as soon as I clean the tail up, I come back with the circular saw and cut it to length. And I put on these particular rafters, they have the additional top cut, like a horizontal cut at the top. You see me, well, I'm still doing the jigsaw here, speeding through this. It's just the process, and you see I'm stacking a bunch of them, and you see the tops of the rafters where they're stacked. They're not your traditional rafters, but it's a unique situation. So anyway, I'm making good progress, getting everything cut and stacked, and then once they're stacked up, I got the number that I need. I come through with the router, and I use a 1/4 inch roundover bit, and I'm only routing from the bird mouth to the top of the front top of the rafter, where it hits the roof, and because that's all that is really going to be exposed. You'll see the entire rafter is exposed, but that's what you really see is the tail. So I put a round over on the tails, and then I come back and clean up as needed with this is just a 40 grit sandpaper, and the battery powered sander does just fine. Just if there's rough edges or barked up edges, or sometimes there's road rash from deliveries or from the lumber yard, just kind of cleans them up some. And then I do my layout. In my layout, I don't necessarily put it on 16-inch centers. or 24-inch centers or anything in particular. I measure my span and I divide that span equally so that the left side rafters have the same span as the right side rafters. You don't end up with a shorter span at one end or the other. So I go through and lay out the bottom band and the top band, and the different spans. I forget the dimensions or the spacing on the rafters, but one side was like 17 inches and the other side was like 18 or 18 and a half or something like that. There I am calculating figuring out how far to space the rafters. Then I just go out and lay them out, and then I'll be nailing some rafters on. And just as simple as that. I already got them laid out, so here we go, nailing them up. The ones on the ends get nailed into the pilings. All nails are stainless steel, by the way. All fasteners are stainless steel. Because we're right on the beach, everything will corrode. If you use galvanized nails, they rust and they fall apart. It's just it's very moist air blowing. I've witnessed it firsthand that the stainless is the only way to go. So we get the rafters going, and one by one up and down the ladder, and you see the top of the rafter, it's going to have a little flat spot on there, but it ended up working out really well. So as I start to put the roof components on, I found it best for me that I take some measurements off the tail, and I plan to leave about an inch overhang past the tail. And so I think I marked 4.5 from the end of the tail, and I don't even need to snap a line. A lot of these boards are straight enough. I just get one on each end and tack one side and go tack the other side, and it's good to go. And so when I nail the second one first, what that does, you see here, is it allows me to put the first one up, and I can support it with the second one using these trigger clamps. I've got flexibility to move it around. I could draw it up tight, and I can get it where I need it to be, and put a little pencil mark and mark the hip cut. I didn't show that hip installation, but it's just like everything else. And the hip is purely decorative, but it does hold up the roofing pieces on the end. And then after I get those first 2 rows in, I just keep going up. And the trick on this one is these round pilings. They add so much extra work to everything, especially when I got to the end and I was doing the bar top. There was so much scribing going on, and all 4 corners on the roof and on the bar top. It was a ridiculous amount of scribing. I didn't charge enough for this job, I know that for a fact. But I learned about it. I've done a lot of jobs with the just regular square pilings, and you cut it and put it up and it's done. But these, you got to scribe it, and then you got to check it, and then you got to bring it down and cut it and take it back up, and how does it fit, and you got to recut it, and it adds so much work to everything. But it all looks good when it's done. It makes for good photographs, and the customer's happy, the real estate company's happy, because these are this particular house is a short-term rental, and people like to have little entertainment areas when they come to the beach. Whether they use them or not, they like them to be there. Even if you got a nice fancy television inside the house, whether they turn it on or not, they want it to be there. So that's a lot of what this is. And like a television, people are going to use it. People are going to use this thing too. They're going to have meals, and This house sleeps over 20 people. I know that. They have over 20 beds in the house, a lot of bunk beds, and so they need outside. They need to accommodate over 20 people, and that's part of what's going on here. That little saw right there, I just bought it, and this is the first job I've been using it on. It's a left-handed saw. It gives me the left-handed bevel, kind of like a worm drive would, I believe. But I typically use a sidewinder, which gives you the right-handed bevel. So this was a kind of like an entry-level saw. It's not a great saw by any means, but I only use it to cut these little roof pieces on the left-handed bevel. And all my major cutting is with the larger saw, with the larger battery, and so with my daily driver, this is just a unique situation tool. So anyways, I get the third one up there, and from there I put these blocks in because I'm going to put the fourth one up there to start scribing. And the scribing process, it just takes a while. I might need to speed these up a little, but the having the first three roof sections in there, it comes in very handy. Gives you something to clamp to, gives you something to support from. It's a very sturdy structure. They hold nails. They're 1 inch thick. It's solid material. So I'm going to button this up pretty soon. I'm going to speed through the what you see on the left side there. But I appreciate everybody paying attention to what I have to show. I know it's not the biggest viewing audience, but I like sharing my work, and this was a good one. This took me a little while to do, a little more than a week, I think, if I remember right. But it was a good job, and I'm going to throw in some still shots at the end. It turned out very nice. It was running so long that I got tired of setting the camera up every day. I just needed to put my head down and finish the job. So I didn't take any footage of building the bar or the seats or the bar surface. But I'm going to get around to one of those. I'll do it just piece by piece. Going through a description of this and showing some footage of this takes enough time in itself. I don't want to make videos any longer than what this is going to be. But thanks for watching. Thanks for staying tuned, and hopefully you feel like you want to subscribe to what I have to show, and hopefully you feel like liking the video. And I appreciate everybody who's spending their time checking it out. Thanks again, and have yourselves a great day.